gaining liberation, a strong nation is built without having colonial rule. After cutting ties with the European colonizers, division blooms between different ethnic and religious groups. Concessions were given to the Europeans, but the population skyrocket, made their resources dwindle, and pollution spurt. Peasants' working-class people became more involved in political contests. Leaders of these nationalist movements convinced the people the promise of jobs, civil rights, and equality. However, this was not the result for many of the new nations because there was just not enough resources. As a result, rivalries reduced the political stability. Bangladesh is an example of the violence caused by this turmoil. Politicians seemed indifferent to these problems. The population growth prevented the growth of a nation, while colonies promoted this population growth by ending local welfare and the building of railroads and steamship links. Population growth slowly decreased, except for in Africa. Religious and social patterns prevented the control of birth rates. The role of women in African society is greatly contrasted Asia's, as they were valued in marketing and agriculture. So anyways, the leaders of Africa and Asia were very against family planning and birth control because they wanted to brag about how they could sustain such a big population. This would soon lead to consequences. After populations were booming, there were mass migrations to the city for people who were looking for a job. They thought their lives would brighten up after being stuck in a poor, crowded village. But they experienced quite the opposite because big cities lacked expanding industrial sectors. Because of this, people mostly became beggars. The elite manipulated the urban poor and became an important factor in the rival ethnic and religious groups. Asia soon inhabits the largest populated cities in the world, but there were great divisions between the rich and the poor, therefore creating parasitic cities that were not productive. And to supply these cities, the urban areas took from the resource-strained rural areas. This led to soil depletion and deforestation, which started harming the wildlife and ecosystem by the industrial pollution. So it was kind of an unfortunate time for the world.
Women's rights became an increasingly trending topic during the time. Women in the West were able to vote in early and mid-20th century, thus encouraging other countries to take similar actions. Women's activism led to symbol of equality in legal rights, education, and occupational positions under the laws. However, even though it was written as law, it was not how women's daily lives played out. Indira Gandhi was India's prime minister. She proved to be the most resolute and powerful of the third world leaders, and Corazon Aquino was the president of the Philippines. Most of the women who entered politics won because they were connected to powerful men. Indira Gandhi was the daughter of Jawaharlal, the prime minister, and Corazon Aquino was the wife of a major leader of the Filipino opposition to Ferdinand Marcos. Benazir Bhutto was the daughter of a Pakistani prime minister who had been toppled by a military coup and executed in the late 1970s. The limitation to women led to the second-class position that many societies follow. Early marriages for women and large families is common in African, Middle Eastern, and Asian societies, thus meaning that women spend their youth producing and caring for children, not allowing for the time for education or to start a career. Most women, except those of higher class, worried about adequate nutrition for their children and their susceptibility to disease. For example, in Indian tradition, women serve men and the sons in the family then takes the leftovers, which are often less nutritious than the original meal. In the 1970s, a survey estimated that 20% of women were malnourished and 30% had a diet under the United Nations level. The economy was in a disarray. A diverse economy did not exist. There was not enough money to buy machines or hire people. The money was spent on the bureaucracy, and because of this, they had to sell cash crops and minerals to pay for industrialization. The export market focused on primary products such as natural resources. However, the natural resources were at a lower value than the manufactured goods based on market trends. The global economy was dominated by the leading industrial countries due to the corruption of bureaucrats who kept the money and spent it on luxury items. They refused to implement the land reforms. African, Middle Eastern, and Asian countries often turned to the World Bank or other international organizations to assist them with investment funds. They would provide the money. However, they had to give up things such as military bases, entering military alliances, favor foreign investors, and reduce state subsidies. All of these prices are raised because of this, causing the locals not to be able to afford the goods. This would then lead to social unrest and riots, as well as collapsing economies. Prices are raised because of this, causing the locals to not be able to afford goods. This would then lead to social unrest and riots, as well as collapsing economies. What?
Do you hear that?
What's that noise?
What are you doing? This is a robbery. Take me to your most valuable possession.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, move it. Come on.
Why?
Because I need the money.
Yeah, but you don't need to do this to me. Why is it that
Every time I'm in the street, I hear yak, 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 yak.
Man down, where you from?
Now moving to the other couch. Kwame Nkrumah was a leader of Ghana's independence movement. He was committed to social reform and economic uplift for the people of Ghana during his rise to prime ministry in 1957. After he was in power, he began working to initiate programs that would transfer his ambitions into reality. However, this was interrupted by rival parties who fought him. His policies were rejected by the US, however, approved by the Soviet. Not only were people fighting him, but natural resources began to cause problems as well. Bad cocoa crops hit the farmers hard because cocoa is Ghana's largest export. The Free Officers movement evolved from a secret organization. They hated all of the wealthy Egyptians. They were loosely aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood founded by Hassan al-Banna. They pushed for social reform and promoted trade unions, education, and land reforms. Al-Banna was assassinated in 1949. However, they were able to take power in 1952 after Egypt was defeated in the Arab-Israeli War. Nasser eventually emerged as a new ruler of the military regime. He enacted land reform measures, provided state-financed education, had government-employed jobs, state subsidies were used to lower prices of staple items, restrictions were put on foreign investments, and pushed the destruction of the Israeli state. However, some of Nasser's implements didn't last. Land reforms were easy to get around and became corrupt. The population boom canceled out the new gains, and public projects failed due to lack of money, even the Aswan Dam project. It killed the farmlands, causing by slit erosion, and the parasites caused blindness. Money from the West is gone, and the foreign policy failed. They lost Israel in 1967. Anwar Sadat, his successor, dismantled the state-sponsored programs and favored private rather than state initiatives. He stopped the fighting with Israel because it was too costly, lastly expelled the Russians and reopened investment from the West.
Now moving on to India. India has always been governed by strong leaders who are fully committed to social reform and economic development to help India grow strong. In fact, India remains as the world's largest functioning democracy. India soon went into the Green Revolution, which introduced new and improved seed strains, fertilizers, and irrigation systems that help produce higher crops yield. India has also produced the largest and most intelligent high-tech sectors in the post-colonial world. Just like here in the Bay, India has their own Silicon Valleys. From the late 1980s, India has also provided us with tens and thousands of computer and internet experts who happen to help us on the daily. India ended up gaining independence from Britain in 1947. Now, moving on to Iran. Iran had not formally... Actually, I'm not feeling this setting. Come on. Come on. Gotta turn off the light to save energy. Now moving on to Iran. Iran had not been formally colonized and actually divided between Great Britain and Russia. The idea of modernization to Iran was fully proposed by the Pahlavi Shahs, whose initiatives were fully supported by Iran's wealth of oil. Iran's wealth from oil took Iran out of isolation, which then took the nation to live until the mid-20th century. When the oil ran out, Iran went into a sudden economic slump, which created unemployment to many citizens of its nation. Now, on to South Africa. Southwest Africa became fully free of South African control in 1989, which is good. Southwest Africa was actually the largest, most populated, richest, and most strategic area where most of its population had been liberated from colonial domination. Okay, it's too loud in here, let's go. You see, South Africa was led under a group called the Nationalists, who want independence from Great Britain just like India did. When the Nationalist group came to power in South Africa, they moved to an institutionalized white supremacy and white minority rule by passing a ton of laws that made up a system that basically dominated and ruled South African life until the 1990s. This whole system was mainly designed to make sure that there was always a monopoly of political power and economic dominance for white minority living in South Africa. Also, in this whole system that was created, the people of South Africa were heavily divided up by race and were not allowed to date or have sexual intercourse across racial lines. Now it's time for the open letter. Dear Nationalist Group. Hi. I think we should meet soon. I just want to talk about a few things y'all did to the South African nation a while ago. Anyways,
I don't understand why you did what you did. I mean, to me, the whole thing is totally useless. How in the world do you see yourself superior to others? What makes you think skin is different from what's inside? We all have the same organs. Some of us are missing some, but that's a whole different other story. We all have a brain, we all breathe, we all live on Earth. I know that back then times were different, and I honestly don't know why I'm getting so mad at about this, but honestly, thank God in life today there are not people like you. I mean, there rarely is, but people who divided people by race, who thought that doing this would lead a nation into extended political power and full economic control. I'm honestly speechless. Like, I'm done. I hope you feel my hate and anger. Love me.